The wind was howling outside as I settled into my small room in the lighthouse. I was a lighthouse keeper, and my job was to maintain the light and keep the ships passing by safe. The lighthouse stood on a remote island, surrounded by nothing but the crashing waves of the sea. It was a lonely job, but I had grown accustomed to it. As I lay down to sleep, I heard a strange noise outside. I got up to investigate, and saw a figure standing on the shore. I couldn't see who it was, but I could feel their eyes on me. I dismissed it as my imagination and went back to bed. The next day, I woke up to find that the light had stopped working. I went up to the top of the lighthouse to investigate, and found that the bulb had been smashed. It was impossible to replace the bulb, as we were too remote to get a new one. I was worried that a ship passing by it might crash into the rocks without the light, so I had to think of a solution. As I was pondering my next move, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I looked up and saw a figure in a dark cloak standing at the top of the stairs. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its presence. The figure disappeared as quickly as it had come, leaving me feeling uneasy. Days passed, and strange things kept happening in the lighthouse. The light would flicker on and off, and I would hear strange noises coming from the top of the tower. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. One night, I was awakened by a loud banging on the door. I got up to see who it was, but there was no one there. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me, and I was trapped. I tried to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. That's when I heard a voice whispering my name. I was terrified and knew that something was terribly wrong. I managed to break down the door and run outside, only to find that the island was now deserted. The lighthouse was the only thing standing on the rocky shore. As I tried to shake off the fear that gripped me, I started to investigate the lighthouse. I searched every nook and cranny, but I couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. However, as soon as I started to descend the spiral staircase, I heard a creaking sound. It was as if someone was following me. The noise seemed to be coming from the top of the tower, and I couldn't help but feel that it was the figure in the cloak that I had seen earlier. As I climbed the stairs back up to the top of the lighthouse, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. What could it be? As I reached the top of the lighthouse, I saw something that made me freeze in terror. There, in the center of the room, was the figure in the cloak. This time, I could see its face clearly. It was a woman with pale skin and dark sunken eyes. Her hair was wild and unkempt, and she had a look of utter despair on her face. I tried to run, but it was as if my feet were glued to the ground. I couldn't move. The woman started to move closer, and I could feel her cold breath on my neck. She whispered something in my ear, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. All I knew was that it was a warning. Suddenly, the woman disappeared into thin air. I was left alone in the lighthouse, shaking with fear. I knew that something was wrong, and I needed to find out what it was. That's when I remembered a story that an old fisherman had told me when I first arrived on the island. He had warned me about a woman who had been a lighthouse keeper on the island many years ago. She had gone mad and started to see strange things. In the end, she had taken her own life by throwing herself off the top of the lighthouse. According to the fisherman, her ghost still haunted the island, and she appeared to those who disturbed her peace. I couldn't believe that I had dismissed the fisherman's warning as an old wives' tale. Now, I was trapped in the lighthouse with the ghost of a madwoman. I knew that I needed to leave the island, but there was no way to call for help. The radio had been damaged in a storm, and the only way to leave the island was by boat. As the night wore on, I could hear strange noises coming from outside the lighthouse. It sounded like someone was walking around the building, trying to find a way in. I was terrified and knew that I had to come up with a plan. That's when I remembered the old rowboat that was tied up on the shore. I made a dash for the shore, trying to avoid the ghostly figure that seemed to be following me. I could hear her whispering in my ear, trying to stop me from leaving. But I was determined to escape from the island and the haunted lighthouse. I managed to untie the boat and row away from the island, leaving the ghostly figure behind. As I looked back at the lighthouse, I could see a figure standing at the top, watching me. It was the woman in the cloak, and I knew that I had escaped just in time. To this day, I still have nightmares about the haunted lighthouse and the ghostly figure that I encountered there. I have warned others about the dangers of staying on the island, but some still choose to ignore the warnings. I only hope that they will be able to escape before it's too late.